So it's that time of the week where we break down all of the action from this weekend in Sky Bet League One. Of course, games on Saturday and a single match on Sunday to dive into. Slightly less games due to international call-ups, but plenty to chat about. Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you happy with your team's performance this time around? Only 8, some teams 9 games to go. It's not long. The business end of the campaign is in full swing. I'll be reading your thoughts and replying to your thoughts as I always do. Please do leave a like and subscribe. A video went out yesterday building my underrated League One 11. If you haven't watched that yet, please do watch it after this one because it's quite interesting, shining a light on some of the players that don't normally get a mention. Let's get into it, starting off with Exeter against Accrington Stanley. So it finishes Exeter 5, Accrington Stanley 0. The XG for the game 2.28 to Accrington's 0.15. A brilliant Exeter showing, especially in that second half. They had a second half XG of 1.64. However, Accrington, a huge problem. A very disappointing result, a humbling defeat. An embarrassing scoreline with no chances whatsoever in their current relegation fight. This is not a good result, not just when we look at the scoreline, not just when we look at the XG and the lack of chances, but just the manner of the loss at this point in the season. We spoke earlier about the business end of the campaign. To lose a game in this manner with the performance, with a lot of goals conceded and an ultimate capitulation in the second half, there's a lot of concern there, a lot of issues. If we look at the graph in front of us here, really in control for the majority of it. Accrington never having a sniff, never in the game. And Coleman and the experience of that manager, he builds sides that are difficult to break down, difficult to beat, not easy to score against. That went against everything that he's about. The principles of a manager and the philosophy of a type of manager like John Coleman. Yesterday's result and performance was against all of that, and that's where his concern will be. Not just looking at the league table and the huge problems that come with that, but we look at this individual performance. Accrington were shambolic, but we shouldn't not give credit to Exeter. We should not do that because Exeter must be given so much praise. They were, of course, dealing with what's in front of them, dealing with a really struggling side that they're up against, but they had to do the job. They had to be fantastic, and they were fantastic. They were a fantastic outfit from start to finish. The first goal, Mitchell, some strike from the left wing back, and I don't want to brag too much about calling this one, because he has had a good season since he joined in January, but he is in, spoiler alert, the underrated 11. So you can go watch that video after this one, as I said in the intro. But Mitchell, he proved why he has not been given the credit that he deserves, and maybe the goal yesterday will help him earn that praise. But since then, I mean, it was 1-0 at half time. They're quite lucky, Accrington, not to be down by more. A big spree of chances just before the break, and then in the second half, they were blown away. Josh Key, Sam Nombe, that third goal is a defensive calamity from start to finish. The ball is bouncing in the penalty area 3 or 4 times. You learn it at under probably 5s. Don't let the ball bounce. Don't let it bounce, not just in your, let alone in your penalty area. Don't let the ball bounce at all, ideally. But in your penalty area, you've got to get the ball out of play as soon as possible. Clear the lines and clear your lines. They weren't able to. And a lack of communication, a lack of authority, leadership through performance, just whatever it was. Nobody did the ball in time, and Exeter just pounced on it. Sam Nombe in the end just had to walk it into the back of the net. A sublime, like I said, just mess. It's harsh. It's really harsh, but it is an absolute mess. And then the fifth goal by Jay Stansfield, a massive goal for him on an individual basis. We know that his father, of course, very sadly passed away. An absolute legend when it comes to Exeter City. He was yet to score in front of the big bank. He did that in the 81st minute. So a brilliant moment for him. A brilliant moment for him to score that goal. An important goal for him. Not just when you look at the footballing side of things, but just generally family, emotion, what it means to him as an individual. It was a lovely, lovely moment. So Jay Stansfield got what he wanted with only 10 minutes to go. But a fantastic performance from start to finish from the Devonshire side. But like I said, you look at this league table and Accrington are in trouble. 21st in the league, 2 points adrift in the bottom 4. Oxford are now the only team not in the bottom 4. Of course, in that sort of relegation dogfight between MK Dons and below, to be honest with you. But MK Dons continue to get some really good results. We'll come on to their game around the grounds later on. But Accrington with 4 straight defeats, 35 points. Like I said, only 2 points now. I say only 2 points. 2 points is a lot at this point in the season. I'm saying that maybe to sort of make myself feel better. We'll have to wait and see. But generally, it's a fantastic result for Exeter, but a very, very disappointing one for John Coleman's side. Like I said, for Exeter, now does see them 11th in the league. A good last 5 games, really. 3 wins in there, a draw. There was a defeat, but to be honest with you, look at Exeter and the season they've had a really, really good one, an encouraging one with lots of things happening. 18 shots, no shots on target for Accrington. A shambolic defensive performance, but going forward, they pretty much created nothing. No shots on target through the 90. It finishes Exeter 5, Accrington Stanley 0. So up next, Peterborough United 2, Derby County 0. The XG for the game 1.42 to Derby's 0.74. Derby really could mess this up. A huge 3 points for Peterborough United in their ongoing playoff push. But look at Derby County, before we give Peterborough that much needed credit, Derby so blunt in attack, nothing going forward. Once again, goals, chance creation, really not there. And I look at Derby and the woes that they're having this season, it comes down to that. It really does, especially last couple of weeks. Peterborough and Derby, that first half, so interesting between the two sides. A game of two halves, we'll come on to that at the end when we reflect on the game, but just looking at that first half, Derby in control, and control is not a guarantee against a side like Peterborough. It really isn't. That amount of possession, we'll come on to possession stats in just a moment, but that first half, definitely the better side, no doubt about it. They looked like they were going to win the game if they took their chances, and we could break it and analyse it as much as we want. Look at the statistics in the ins and outs. So many sort of niche numbers that we can look at and talk about and reflect on. But ultimately, it comes down to goals. The bottom line is a goal is far better than most stats we're going to chat about. And when you have that amount of dominance compared to your opposition, away from home, against a promotion-pushing side, a rival, ultimately now, for a playoff place, you've got to be better than that. To be far better than that. And Peterborough showed exactly what Derby didn't do and what Derby needed to do. Peterborough were everything Derby weren't when you compare the two halves, because in the second half they came out and you can see no green spikes, no home spikes in the graph here, the attacking momentum graph on the screen. Nothing in the first half. In the second half they did grow into the game, they did get their chances, and the thing they did differently was take them, and they scored. They were 2-0 up from those big chances. I think Paul Ward also said it really well in his post-match interview. He's very disappointed with the result, as you can imagine, because he knows this could very, very quickly turn into an absolutely dire season. And I look at the attacking players of McGoldrick, of Mendes-Lang, of Harvey White on loan from Tottenham, an attacking midfielder with a very, very bright future ahead of him. Lewis Dobbin as well. These are brilliant attacking players. They didn't show it yesterday. They haven't really shown it in the last weeks. But these are enough players to win and take chances. And maybe even not win. Maybe that's even too far. But when you have that control, in that circle, that context of the game, you've got enough players on the pitch to be more ruthless and to be better in the final third. And they weren't able to. And that, again, for me, is the problem. And everybody knows it's the problem. Derby know it. Paul Warne said it in his interview post-match. He also said, really interestingly, we look at the average positions and we include substitutes. 2 subs at half-time, Darren Ferguson made. Poku came on. And you can see, he's number 11. He came on at half-time for Burrows, of course, who is a wide player, or a wing-back in the system that they play. And they went with a 2 up front, and that changed it completely. Defensively in the second half, Derby were not good enough, and Poku gave them something a little bit different. You can see he gave a different outlet. Was he involved in any goal involvements? No, he wasn't, but he did give them something a little bit different. He gave them that more advanced option. You can see the number 9 comes up a little bit deeper. We know that obviously, there's an ability to sort of change that. Number 11, Poku, is the one sort of getting in behind, being a little bit more advanced when we look at those 2 players. And that, again, that is something a little bit different. And it gave Derby something different to think about. And it didn't work. They couldn't think about it. They really, really struggled to deal with it. Let's have a look at the league table then. Possession stats, 13 shots to 5. Really quite the same when it comes to shots on target. A lot of them in the first half. In fact, we look at the first half, definitely Derby. No shots on goal, no shots on target. A perfect first half for Derby. If they score, they weren't able to. Second half, far more equal. Derby still edging them on possession, but the shots came in the end. After no shots in the first half, Peterborough ended with more shots and more shots on target. A dire second half, but a brilliant first half for Derby. But they're not going to care about that at all because they lose the game in such horrible style. Let's have a look at the playoffs now then. Derby 6th, Peterborough United 7th, breathing down the next. 38 points of both, 38 games for both of those sides, but only a point difference now. But Peterborough in control when you look at the form. Form could be everything at this point in the season. Rhythm, momentum, confidence is going to play a huge part. Derby now back-to-back defeats, and like I said, Peterborough, a big home game for them on Saturday against Oxford United. I'm going to be there at Peterborough, cheering on, of course, Oxford United, my side, who weren't involved in any of the games this weekend. But hopefully we can make it interesting for this playoff race, and hopefully, most importantly for us, we can get ourselves out of trouble at the bottom end of the table. But that's going to be meaning that Peterborough are going to be firing. They're going to be up for it. They're going to be confident, and they're going to know the importance of getting something from the game. There we go then. Peterborough 2, Derby County 0 is the final score. Derby, concern, wobbly. Peterborough now chasing and really in the mix. Let's move on to the penultimate and the third game of this roundup. So at Fratton Park, it finishes Portsmouth 2, Port Vale 2. The XG for the game, 2.23 to Port Vale's 0.93. I'd probably say a game of two halves. A sloppy first half from Pompey, of course, 2-0 down at the break. Port Vale brilliant in capitalising on the mistakes that John Mousinho's side forced upon themselves. Matt Macey didn't have games. I'm not going to just dig into him individually, but I think it is important to say wasn't his best game. A below-par performance from his standards. He's shown in a Portsmouth shirt. He's a very, very capable goalkeeper, a very good goalkeeper that John Mousinho wants to see stay at the football club. Of course, currently on loan from Luton Town, but he wants him to stay. Yesterday wasn't brilliant. Sometimes the scores and individual player ratings can be off on SofaScore, a little bit misleading. I would say 5.6 is harsh. It's red. It probably is the truth, because the first goal, I mean, it wasn't Matt Macey's fault, you'd say, that the first one. It was just really bad defending, not really clearing their lines whatsoever. Similar in some way to the Accrington conceded against Exeter, where they just weren't able to clear their lines. They weren't able to defend their penalty area. It sort of trickled its way across. Not quite sure what it's doing there, so it's 0-0. Maybe Port Vale are going to get back into the game and hold on to the lead, or maybe not. No, 2-2. What I was going to say, though, is I think it was, again, a problem where it sort of bounced and trickled and weaved its way through, and really somebody just got the end of it and clear it, and they weren't able to, and that's how Port Vale scored. Matty Taylor scored and was man of the match for Port Vale yesterday. Amazing stuff. We were in crying need for a goal scorer. Port Vale are currently above us in the league table and scoring goals. Matty Taylor is bagging them. That is frustrating. Not for now, though. Not for now. The second goal actually also does involve Matty Taylor in a different way. He presses Matt Macey, and then Matt Macey, I'm not quite sure what he's doing. He sort of desperately tries to play out from the back. It's intercepted by the Port Vale man who hits it, and he doesn't really dive. I'm not quite sure if it was unsighted, or it was deflected, or he just didn't fancy diving. I'm not entirely sure. You have to ask Matt Macey that question, but from looking at it on replays, it's a little bit bizarre. Way, Pompey are down goals at the break, and again, it's individual errors, and frustrated. I think the team wasn't great, but I'd also say, like I said, those were very, very costly. They missed a penalty just before half-time as well, which probably does sum up the half the John Mousinho side were having. Not really anything going their way. And then in the second half, a lot of work that needed to be done. A couple of half-time substitutions. Robertson came on for Towler. Thompson came on a little bit later on, just before Colby Bishop made up redemption from the penalty spot, tucks it away 2-1. And then 2-2, Michael Jacobs equalises and provides a good comeback. It's a comeback to gain a point, which really at one point you would snap your hand off for. Is it what Portsmouth need when you look at their late potential push into the top six with the likes of Bolton and Derby not being in the greatest of form? No, it's not a great point, but in the circumstances, in the context, it is a good point, you'd say. However, if you look at both sides, weirdly, they're probably going to come away feeling that they could have done much better, and it could have gone either way, and they feel they probably should have won the game, either side. Disappointing point for all parties when you look at the context of the match. Port Vale be hoping they could have kept on to their 2-goal lead, and Portsmouth looking that maybe with only 20 minutes to go and that equaliser with plenty of the match still to be played, with the momentum definitely towards them, they could have gone on and maybe scored a third and come away with the 3 points, which would have been an incredible turnaround when you look at what it was like at half-time. So yeah, it's a strange one. It is a strange one. But 2-2, I think, does show that Port Vale, they shouldn't be messed with. They shouldn't be messed with this year, and they've, similar to Exeter, definitely been punching above their weight, but in a really respectful way. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible, because they have been top-notch and beating sides away and at home that really, on face value, and you look at the squads on paper, which, of course, football isn't played on paper, should really, some would say, be a different outcome. But 16th in the league for Port Vale. Yes, they are winners in the last three, but it's a very good point. 45 points for them. Pompey, now 9th, 58 points played. For 58 points played, 38 games played, 58 points from those 38. I'd say, I mean, they're still in the mix. They are still in the mix, but it is going to need sides above them to drop points, and you can't really. They are relying on other games going their way and results sort of going in their favour. But there we go. It's a disappointing point for both parties in a weird way. But before the game, Port Vale probably would have stuck your hand off for it. There we go. Pompey 2, Port Vale 2. Who on earth saw this one coming? It finishes Forest Green Rovers 1, Sheffield Wednesday 0. The XG for the game 0.77 to Sheffield Wednesday's 0.49. Welcome to Sky Bet League One, where nobody is safe. Absolutely nobody is safe. Crazy scenes at Forest Green Rovers. I watched it, of course, on Sky Sports. That's why the roundup is slightly late today recording, and we've had to wait until the game was finished on the Sunday. But it was a fascinating watch. And not a good one at all if you are a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. A brilliant Forest Green Rovers performance. Absolutely sublime game plan executed to the best degree. And Duncan Ferguson had to wait a little while for his first Forest Green Rovers win. And oh boy, he needed it. And he wanted it. And in that style, that probably does feel worth it. It probably does feel worth it. Would have hoped it came earlier on in the season. Are they already relegated? Who knows? To both of those questions. But before we break down Sheffield Wednesday and look at where it all went wrong and look at how bad they were, because let's be totally frank with you, Sheffield Wednesday were dire. Forest Green Rovers had a plan that just needed a lot of very important ingredients, but some ingredients that their opposition, I think at times, didn't show. Care, belief, hard work, determination. 4 ingredients that they showed through the entire game. From start to finish, it was press, get on them quickly, difficult, go long, be a bit more direct. Like I said, press everything, corner them in, pin them in those wide areas. And they did all of that so well. And Sheffield Wednesday, they just couldn't break them down. They could not break Sheffield Wednesday down. They had more of the ball. They had possession in the end. You can see 66% possession to 34%. But what they did do was make sure they were compact. In fact, we can look at the chances and the average positions that Forest Green Rovers had in the game. Really compact. We look at Sheffield Wednesday. Again, they were forced to be compact. They wanted to make the game be very, very tight. Wanted it to be tight. And that's exactly what Forest Green Rovers did. A really strong structure, playing a 5 at the back at times, to be honest with you. It was a 4-4-2. Out of possession, they sort of moved it into a 5. But it was a really strong showing from them. A really strong showing. And like I said, they tried to make it really quite difficult to play through. And Wednesday were unable to play through and get the best out of the players that are normally influential and game-changing. Barry Bannon never really got a good going. Michael Smith, not really ever getting a chance. Lee Gregory, not really ever getting a chance. Liam Palmer, Johnson, struggling down those wide areas. They were on them. They were stretching the game. And I just don't... It's one of those where you look back on the game and you can't quite believe what you're seeing, because Forest Green Rovers, if you watch that and you didn't watch it every week in sports, you'd probably be thinking, Forest Green Rovers, they're going to be fine. They're going to be safe. Maybe, of course, them knowing it's a big game, they are the underdogs. Are they playing with as much pressure? Because if you look at that league table, it does look not very favourable, if we're being quite honest. And being on Sky Sports as well, you have those extra eyes and that really, I think, driven mentality to show what you're about. I get that. All of those are important. But even you should not be getting, in this case, and look at it from the perspective of Sheffield Wednesday, beaten in that way. They're an XG of 0.49. I mean, look, you look at the graph there, that they did have moments, they sort of huffed and puffed in the last sort of 30 minutes, but never really did you actually think Sheffield Wednesday were going to score. The only reason why you thought Sheffield Wednesday were going to score was because you knew what they'd done in the past, but not in the game. We know Sheffield Wednesday are a top side, hence why you thought, if they score a goal, that's of a side that don't play very well but can get something from the match. But in the context of the 90 minutes that we were watching, did you ever think Wednesday were going back in that game? Because they were pretty rubbish. And that's harsh. And I'm very, very favourable and actually I think I've been fairly fair with Sheffield Wednesday across the season. I don't want Sheffield Wednesday to think that I've now got some sort of agenda and I'm going in on them too much, because, again, I'm a neutral in this completely and I'm just breaking it down. From what I saw, though, and I can have an opinion, it wasn't great. And Wednesday fans, let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with that. I'm surprised if you don't agree with that, because that was not good. Definitely below par, and definitely not the standard that you've set. And actually, it comes down to that as well. The standards that Sheffield Wednesday have set through the season, that just sort of, it goes well below that. Absolutely well below those standards that have been set. And I spoke to Nappers. We've got a group chat. Tom, of course, 4-0. Jake and Nappers, Ben, Cos Vlogs. And Cos Vlogs, and I don't think he minds me saying this, Ben, but he said, when a side ends an unbeaten run or loses an unbeaten run, of course, Sheffield Wednesday back-to-back defeats, they lost to Barnsley on the Tuesday. When a side loses a run like that, that can be really difficult to get back on track. And Sheffield Wednesday have got to make sure, because how tight this is, if you start having a blip now, that could be the difference between top two and the... It really, really could. Imagine if Sheffield Wednesday now hit a blip and they can fall short. Not necessarily because they don't deserve it. They do deserve it. They went on an incredible run. 22 games, 23 games unbeaten is a club record, probably a league record in some way, and a fantastic achievement. But because you've got Ipswich, Barnsley, Plymouth, also on top form right now, you can't afford to have a blip. Unbeaten runs or not, the past of really, really solid runs or not, you've got to be fantastic and consistently fantastic through the season, and that's how competitive this division is. And a result like that really could derail it. But I don't want to sort of go on Sheffield Wednesday too much, because losing to Barnsley 4-2 is right now not ideal. You know, it's a poor result. It's not great. Barnsley are unstoppable, on fire. They're a great side, but losing at home to what everybody deemed to be an already relegated Forest Green Rovers side, away from home, already relegated Forest Green Rovers side, is, I'd say, almost a disaster. Really, really bad. Not a single Sheffield Wednesday big chance in the game. I wouldn't even say it was lucky. I wouldn't say it was lucky. Sometimes smash and grabs, and some goalkeepers making 14 saves and 22 shots on goal. Not this game. Not in this one. Just really, really not at it, Sheffield Wednesday. Not in the races whatsoever. And Forest Green Rovers, Duncan Ferguson, fantastic. Well done to you, because that was some performance and some grit, and they're going to be tired tonight. They'd sleep well, those players, because they gave everything. Absolutely everything indeed. Let's go around the grounds. Of course, less games to look at, but still we should touch on all of them. Charlton Athletic 1, Wycombe Wanderers 1. A late-ish Wycombe Wanderers goal that came in the 82nd minute to completely cancel out the Miles Leeburn goal in the first 15. That's 1-1 in the end between those two sides. Wycombe still pushing for a top 6 finish, but Peterborough winning, who knows? Probably should be wanting to win that game, but we know Charlton are getting better under Dean Holden. And a huge result from MK Dons in their relegation fight against Morecambe. Very, very concerning when it comes to Morecambe. They knew winning, just not even losing a game like this is important, but to lose it, Morecambe, they're in trouble. MK Dons looking now, they could fight their way out of trouble. Fantastic 1-0 win for them. Fleetwood 2, Lincoln City 1 is a final score. You can see quite a tight game, but you probably say Fleetwood the better side in the first half and the second half. 2-1 the final score between, of course, Ben and Nappers. The Ben and Nappers derby, it finishes 1 apiece. And that is all of the games. Please do leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, international call-ups have slightly hindered the roundup this week, but we can't do too much about it. We can't do too much about it whatsoever. Until next week, I'll see you all very, very soon. Of course, watch the underrated League One 11 video. It definitely deserves, I think it deserves a little watch, but I made it, so maybe that's a little bit of me blowing my own trumpet. You can have your thoughts on it. I think it's okay. Until next time, I'll see you in a bit.